Hey guys, it's Hannah and this is Bookworms Talk, and today I am going to talk about Confess by Colleen Hoover. This one, starting off, I think the most beautiful cover of her books. Personal opinion, but I think this is beautiful. I was super excited for this book and I was lucky enough to get a little bit of an early copy, but I filmed a review. I didn't write notes while I read the book, which is a thing I normally do, but I just got so wrapped up into it and I forgot to, and I just wasn't happy with how the video turned out because I forgot too many things. So I decided to go ahead and reread it and refilm. So this is the better video. I love you guys. I did not want to give you that video. That was bad video. So I'm going to give you a quick non-spoiler summary of this, and I'm going to be pretty vague. Because this story does have like this element of mystery because there are these two pasts from these characters that we don't fully know until things start falling into place, and then you can kind of piece it together, but so it really has that element of mystery to it, and I don't want to spoil anything. And this story focuses around Auburn, who has moved recently to Dallas. Everything that she has had has just fell apart, and it's kind of this mending. But when she walks into this art studio kind of searching for a job, she meets this artist called Owen Gentry. I mean, this is a Colleen Hoover book, so we know that romance ensues, but it's kind of the how it happens that is actually quite quick, but it doesn't feel disingenuine, which I haven't actually found with any Colleen Hoover book, to be honest, but in other books when it can feel insta-love-ish, but that didn't happen in this case. A couple things that I can say, because I really have to skirt around a lot of the big topics in this book because they're potentially pretty big spoilers. I'm going to talk about why it's called Confess. I can do that. So at this art studio that Owen owns, I'm pretty sure, it's kind of like he has this mail slot where people drop in their confessions, and Colleen actually gathered confessions from readers who I'm assuming anonymously sent them to her, and she used a lot of them, and some of them just I bawled at because there's something so genuine about that, and I don't know, oh. And with these anonymous confessions that he gets, he then creates these paintings from them. And she actually does have paintings in here, which I think is so cool to include. Let me show you one. Sorry, I have a glare, but that's what they look like. And this is from the artist Danny O'Connor. I think it's just another extra something something to have the actual painting in there. And yeah, just to go back on the idea of these confessions that he gets in, and he just is inspired to paint these things, and then he'll like sell them off at like a private auction that he does once a month. And sometimes the people whose confession they are, they'll buy it or just whatever. Doesn't even have to be them. It could just be like a confession that is similar to how they have felt. But I love that idea so much, and that is what I think is the best part of the book for me. I can't really summarize any further than that because I don't want to start spoiling things because I feel like I'm just like, it's on the tip of my tongue, the spoilers, and I keep having to rein myself back. So at that, I will have to say goodbye to you guys. If you have not read this, this is one of those books where I'm really heavily warning you, if you have any interest in reading this book, do not watch the spoiler section because the spoilers, they're big spoilers, okay? And I don't want to ruin the book for you. So come back when you have read it, and I will see you guys later. Bye. Okay, so fate. That's what I want to talk about first. And if you're still here and you haven't read it, it's really the time to leave because this will big time ruin it. This book is super mysterious, and that's one of the biggest parts of it that I love. And now that I'm looking back on other Colleen Hoover books, she does have that little element of mystery and things, but this, I was like, come on, tell me now, tell me now, I want to know. And I love that in books, especially hers, because yeah. They have this part on page 71 about fate. And they have the same middle name, which is Mason. It's just this one little sentence, but then it's tied in at the end, which I will immediately go to because that's my favorite part. I love it when things are referenced and I remember it and I feel like a genius, even though it really should not be that difficult. I like feeling smart wherever I can get it, okay? Where he's talking about how they have the same middle name, and her showing up on my doorstep tonight, her connecting with my art, her having the same middle name as I do. That could be fate, you know? And that is what Adam said when Owen talked to Adam in the hospital. I am such a sucker for the idea of fate, and I truly, in my heart, I do believe in that. I could logically say all day how it doesn't make sense and give you reasons, and I can mean those reasons. But when it comes down to it, I do believe in it. Because, I don't know, I think when you believe in something, you have to realize the cracks in your argument. And so, I don't know, I feel like that almost makes that belief in it stronger by acknowledging the weaker foot points in it. Anyway, so then there's that about having the same middle name, but that's not even really the biggest part of this. the fact that they meet again. I mean, she does come back for her son and everything, but just for him to have been in the same area and to actually meet, and then for them to even have not even technically really crossed paths in like a big impactful way in the hospital. So that year ago, was it 5 years ago? I think it was 5 years ago. But for them to meet each other again and her to happen to walk that way, and it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm a crockpot for believing in fate, but I totally do. Oh, and that reminds me, I made a note to myself. There's this poem called Origin Story by Phil K. and Sarah K. They're not related. The last name thing is fate, and I will continue to explain why that is. And I find this is the most powerful example that I have to people who are maybe a little bit more critical of it. I kind of refer them to this video, and please, it's like, what, 2 minutes? Okay, it's 7 minutes, but it's really not that long of your life, I promise. And it's this poem where, if you're not familiar with slam poetry, it's just they literally perform poetry. So the whole poem goes something like how they met. They are both poets, obviously. But then Phil's sister's name is Sarah, and Sarah's brother's name is Phil. And also their siblings are exactly the same age, and he is from LA and she is from New York, and they happen to go to the same college, and they meet because there's technical difficulties at this freshman talent show, and they were both performing spoken word poetry, and they happen to meet. And I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that things like that are so weird, and it's fate. So I'm a really big believer in that, hence why I found so much joy from that being in the book, because I don't find that unrealistic. I find that completely realistic. Let's talk about something funny. Owen's initials are OMG, Owen Masonry, and I thought that was the funniest thing ever, and it's so small, but I get such joy from the smallest things. Like Wrecking Ball Katie, I cried. I laughed so hard. Oh my god, and the fact that he named his cat, who's a girl, after himself, just, I loved that. So when I was at a signing of Colleen Hoover's last year, 2013, 14, whenever Ugly Love came out, and I talked to her, and when she was signing my book, she asked how to spell my name, which is H-A-N-N-A-H. It's a palindrome. And she kind of laughed, and I was like, what? She's like, I made a bad character that has that same name that's a palindrome. And I'm like, I can't wait to hear. And it ended up being in Confess. And yeah, so Hannah is Owen's ex, and there's one part, it's just like this line, that's my entire little spiel to remind you, just so I could read you this line, because we're going on the funny train for a moment. What a waste of a palindrome she was, that Hannah. When we get the backstory of what happened with Owen's mother, and I feel like it was super important for there to be some kind of life-altering moment or something like that to really help us understand him. And I think how you overcome things or how you don't overcome things really says a lot about your character. I did not expect Auburn to have a kid. I knew something was up, didn't know what was up. Now Trey. That was my squirrel face. I really didn't like him, but I could understand him. I try really hard to put myself in the shoes of the antagonist because I find their motivations really interesting, and if I see motivations there, then I don't know, they seem more real to me, and they're not just bad for the sake of being bad, because that's what the bad guys are. I felt, especially with Trey, like, I got it. I really got it, because he felt kind of outshined by his brother, and then even in his brother's death, he still felt outshined by that, and it wasn't an excuse, and I really loved the balance of that. At least that's what I got out of Trey, at least. Now Lydia, I understood her too. I hated her so much. I didn't want to understand her, but she's grasping on to what's basically left of her son, and she's just a really controlling person. Yeah, I mean, I hate that I do, but I understand her. But when Trey introduced this idea of, oh, well, we will work well together, and it just kind of becomes on this big blackmail thing. If you want to have time with your kid, AJ, well, we would be a good match. Maybe I can work something out. And it was, that pissed me off so bad. When Owen took the blame for his dad having the oxy, and it was in his car, and he took all the blame. I think his father was drunk as well. I felt like it was really, really necessary, again, to further develop his character and for actual plot. Can you tell I've been writing a lot? I'm so focused on the writing of it and not as much on the story. I'm sorry. There's this really great parallel, and I think this is one of my favorite parts in the book, that it was really beautifully crafted. Okay, so the parallel is this parallel between the sacrifices that Auburn makes for her son AJ and the sacrifices that Owen's father does not make for Owen. They have this one night together where Auburn stays over at the studio, and when he wakes up, he paints her, and then everything's destroyed. But then the painting that was not destroyed was the painting of Auburn with her confession. And had all of her confessions like scattered around the painting. It was bad news from that point on. It got really bad. But except there was one that was not there, one confession that was not that read, "I'll think about last night forever, Owen, even when I shouldn't," which is, again, this parallel that she had with Adam, where they had this thing they said, I'll love you forever even when I can't, or even when I shouldn't. I'll love you forever even when I can't. And I loved that one occurring thing, like that one sentence, again, right up there with the confessions. Like the idea of that is like my favorite aspect of the story. I am a sucker for small things, but they're important things. I really loved Auburn's growth in this story. She was a very meek character, and she kind of just took what was hit at her. She took everything that Lydia did to her or said to her, and everything Trey did or said, and she took it in because she wanted to be there for her son. But then she got to a point where I think she said something like, "I refuse to be like this spineless mother to him. Like, that is not what I'm going to be." And she started to stand her ground, and it was like proud mama moment. Like, you could see her character growth. And she was really smart. Like, she's so much smarter than I originally gave her credit for, because I started to see her grow and become a bit of a badass. And she records this conversation that she has with Trey where she basically gets him to talk about the paintings and the blackmail of it all, and because it's like, who was Owen going to call? The cops? He's a cop. They're not going to clean up their own mess. Just to touch on the painting again that Owen painted for Adam, who then he had Owen send to Auburn. That was complicated for me, I don't know why. That was a beautiful aspect to the story, and I'm sure I've said it before, but I particularly love it. And that was just like that last bit of the mystery and the puzzle piece and the why, and it just clicked so perfectly right at the end. And the end kind of like, it had an ending, but it wasn't the kind of ending I was expecting, and I liked that. It was bittersweet. I think that's the best way I can kind of describe it. Also, can I say that I instantly loved Owen just because he punched Trey when I realized how much of an ass that Trey was? Like, yes. I want to know your favorite parts of this book. I had a couple. I mentioned mostly aspects, not necessarily parts, but I have like that one sentence that it could be fate, you know? So yes, let me know what your favorite quote is or your favorite part. I will see you guys later next time on Bookworms Talk. Bye. Talk about Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover.